Okay, so now we're on to a Summa Equity section of our broadcast. And joining me today is Kees and Emelie. Welcome to #World Food Day.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Okay, the first thing I want to ask Kees is, Summa Equity has been a great supporter of Peace One Day. You've enabled this global conversation to take place today along with our other supporters. I just want to say I'm incredibly grateful, firstly, to you for doing that.
Well, Jeremy, we are so excited to be here. And so let's start by saying, Happy World Food Day. And we as Summa Equity, we are very privileged and happy to be able to be a big supporter of it. So, Summa Equity, who are we? And so we have been founded with a vision to invest in solving real global challenges. And that obviously is a big task to have. And if you think about, where real transformation needs to happen, clearly that needs to happen in a circular economy. Clearly that needs to happen around, the energy transformation. But the food transformation is an absolute critical part of that. So that's why we are so passionate about being here and contribute to World Food Day. If we think about that, in investment, this is called impact investing. And Summa Equity is actually Europeans' largest impact investment fund. And what is interesting is that because you're solving global issues, your relevance in society is actually significant. And that means is that, our returns are also, disproportionate. So there is actually a real economic system to help to change the system. And there, where actually that is not the case, then we have a Summa Foundation to be able to invest for unlocks even on a longer term when there's not an immediate return in there. So that makes Summa Equity actually very, very unique.
Kees, your personal story, in terms of being in the world of business, you worked for Unilever for a long time and were looking after North America. Your knowledge on all of this is pretty incredible. It must be exciting to be at Summa Equity and enabling incredible programs around the world to actually have a chance.
Yeah, the uniqueness is, once a business is net positive, it actually gives more to society than it takes out. And it is already a proven business model which, has a real, net positive also in financial terms. To be able to help that with additional capital and to be able to really scale that so that everything what you do gets a disproportionate, even bigger positive impact in society. It's just fantastic. That is where the passion of business and society lies.
Amazing. And Emelie, it's very interesting at Summa Equity because you have a whole series of highly experienced individuals who are looking at different sections of this to make solid investments that are going to make impact. Talk to us about your area of work.
Yeah, so I'm an impact director at Summa Equity, and the food system, it's one of the most powerful levers of planetary resilience. Yet it's not being used as of now, and it's very complex. So at Summa, we have identified theories of change that inform our investments and our sourcing and our value creation work. And this theory of change for the food system is built on the planetary boundaries framework, which identifies 9 critical Earth system limits that we need to stay within in order to keep ourselves or the planet in a safe operating space. And this is not about the planet itself. The planet will always be fine in one shape or form, but it's about creating that space that we as humans can thrive, really. And these theories of change that we have developed are aligned with the planetary boundaries and identify very concrete investment opportunities. And we see now how climate change, biodiversity, water, so many of these planetary boundaries are being pushed by the food systems of today. And paradoxically, they're also dependent on them, right? So we need land, we need water, etc., in order to be able to produce food. So what we're trying to do is to shift these systems, so real world systems, and making them operating within the planetary boundaries. And that's why we need a total systems change.
It's absolutely amazing. I want to just talk a little bit about now some of the connections that you have, and we're going to hear now from a farmer, Mario. Do you want to just introduce that for me slightly?
No, as Emelie said, the critical part is total system change. And so this is just one example of an investment which we have done. And the uniqueness of this is why we use this as an example, is that this is really from farm all the way to fork, total system change. So let's start with the farmer.
Yep, let's look at Mario now.
Hi, I'm Mario. I'm coming from Croatia. And 5 years ago, we invested in farming. We mainly use wheat, corn, soybean and fava bean. And we are rotating these 4 crops all the time. I think that the main problem is we have lots of difficulties with the weather conditions. And the way of farming that is doing right now in Croatia is not adapting to this situation. Because of that, we have lots of farmers have a problem with the yield, with the corrosion of the soil. And I think if they will not transfer the way of doing this business, they will get in more and more trouble in the future. For Bloom project, we use inoculant seed. We put manure. We use reduced tillage. So for the preparing, we just have 1 pass, and after that seeding, while our neighbors who are doing conventional tillage, they have around 3 to 4 passes before seeding. In these terms, in our way doing the tillage, we have a much lower consumption of fuel, and we see the quality of the soil is better because we can preserve much more nitrogen inside. And each year we are doing the analysis of the soil, and we see the difference.
Incredible to hear from Mario. What amazing work that he's doing. So next up, we're going to hear from Giuseppe, who's going to talk about all of the benefits of this amazing crop, the fava bean. Let's look at that film now.
So rebuilding soil biology is really about understanding how the soil life works and how it gets to become more and more rich. And there's basically 2 pathways. One is really through the root exudates, and that's about optimizing photosynthetic efficiency in the crop and getting more and more glucose and sugars to the microbes and the fungi and all the soil life that is in the root zone. And the second pathway that we need to improve is really about the plant residue. So if we have more coverage of the soil with organic matter, all the life that is under the soil gets fed. What we have developed is a series of protocols that are really crop and soil and climate specific, so that we actually build those 2 systems to then slowly build and revive the soil biology. We call it a soil restoration project. And in essence, a soil restoration project starts with analyzing what is the situation in the soil. We look at all the metrics that you'll find in a standard soil report, like pH, CEC, all the macronutrients. And then we create, for that particular crop and soil combination, a formula, a blend of microbes and fungi and other organic compounds, secondary metabolites, that we bring in already from the start when the seed is planted. So during the growth phase, we then continue with plant sap analysis, and we add the missing nutrients and also secondary metabolites that are necessary not only to feed the plant with missing nutrients, which is very often what is happening today in farming, but also to make sure that the plant has the right defenses to grow in a natural and strong way. And then after harvest, we take a very equally tailored approach for the cover crops. So we create a mix of cover crops that are specific to that situation. And we could be adding cover crops that do nitrogen fixation or pathogen resistance or soil decompaction. That's the type of personalization that we do.
Kees, it's inspirational what's happening here.
Yeah, let me talk about the significance. And, when you really ladder it up strategically, the first thought is that there is a difference between what we call the doom loop versus the power of nature. And what's actually happening all around the world at the moment is around the doom loop. More chemicals are being put onto the soils, then GMO seed is getting there, and that means is that the soil gets deteriorated incredibly, which means is that you need again more GMO and more chemicals. But there's also actually a total, as you've heard both, Mario the farmer and Giuseppe talk about, is that there is the power of nature loop. And there, when you really start to do the right practices, and you do that, with the right knowledge and the real understanding of what the soil needs, and you bring back the power of nature. And so there's actually two principally logics, either the doom loop or the power of nature. And that's actually what we're bringing back. The second point is that there is actually a paradigm shift which needs to happen all around the world. Everybody thinks is that this, first get yields lower and then, you build it back up. And so there is risk and a lower yield for the farmer. Actually, that is not the case. Is that you can do this with cost neutrality and therefore minimize the risk, if anything, actually opportunity for the farmer, and do that in cost neutrality. And then there's a third point, because the farmer has talked about this unique fava crop, together with the right knowledge about the soil, and then, about the practices. But there's one step otherwise as well, and that is what you do with the seed. So let's listen to Dr. Eric, who is actually talking about, Eric Jackson. He's talking about, the uniqueness of what you can do with the seed. And then, you create a total system again from the land, with the crop, with the seed, and with the practices, which actually creates a total system in itself.
Amazing, Kees. Let's look at that film now.
Nutrus extracting protein from fava was interesting to us because we had already started working on fava, because we had developed an oat variety that was high protein that we were using in Africa. So we came here and we were talking to Nutrus about partnering with them to advance what they're seeing in their fields, because they had heat problems with the crops. Beans don't do well in high temperatures. And so in that case, we had been working on that for Africa, so we felt like it was a really good fit. And not only that, we were also working on elevating the protein content. So we came in and started working with our farmers this past year, where we actually took the genetics we've been working on and more of this global-based genetics to say, how does that compare to the current genetics you're working on right now? So we did five farms last year. We did research plots with their team, and we were looking at how does our average and our genetics compare to the genetics that currently exists in Croatia. And what we found was over doubling of the yield and almost 14 to 15% greater protein content with that higher yield. And I think one of the things that really stuck out to me that was really powerful is when we were on one of the farms with the Nutrus employee, a gentleman named Ivan and his family's farm. We'd spent all day planting the trial, putting it in. And I remember at the end of that day, he grabs me and he said, "Please tell me this is going to work." And it started to dawn on me at that moment that this was more than just a commercial exercise with them and with Nutrus. This was livelihood for him. And so the exciting part of that story is it worked. And so we were able to double the yields, like I said, and 15 to 20% higher protein, which that is a life changer for him. And so I think that's the excitement part for me in looking at this work with Nutrus. It's not just about creating protein isolates that are better and cleaner for people that have less allergens, but it's also about improving just the livelihoods of small town and small shareholder farmers throughout.
It's incredible, again, what we're hearing today. But how significant, Emelie, are these practices?
Thanks, Jeremy. I mean, this makes me so excited, because this is a glimpse of what the system could look like, where it's regenerative instead of depleting, where it contributes to the planetary boundaries, to making this place a safe place for us as people. And working with farmers, with soil biologists, with seed scientists, and this collaboration, because if you want systems change, you need people that know what they're doing really deeply, and each of these individuals know what they're doing. And this collaboration between them, that's just where magic happens, right? Where we can create this change of an entire system. And I also really appreciate the farmer-centric approach, because without the farmers, we're not going to change the way we produce food. So we need to have them on board, and creating this win-win situation where they actually have more yield from less land use. That's fantastic, right? And just having this exemplifying how systems can change, it's just amazing to see. And it's that exemplification of systems change, I think, that makes this really significant.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations, the three of us, and what is really wonderful is the passion here, isn't it? I mean, the passion at Summa, and also the three wonderful films that we've seen. I mean, that's what's exciting. I mean, it really means a lot to you, doesn't it, to be able to support these organisations, make investments that's going to help the manifestation of a more peaceful and sustainable world. I can see it in you. It's wonderful. And Kees.
And so, if we think about the total system change, so we've talked about, all the way upstream, and that is a system in itself, which needs to change. The next step, actually, when you go from farm to fork, is when you think about, unique, innovative product development. And so, that is, again, a system in itself. So let's hear from the CEO of Nutris, Swannemeer, what that actually is all about.
Nutris is combining innovation and agriculture. So when we started here in Croatia, there was no fava bean production. We started with the 2 farmers, with the fava bean as a very powerful crop, more underutilized crop in my opinion. And today we grow to more than 500 farmers. At the same time, we built world's first and largest fava bean dedicated facility. And we are producing one of the cleanest protein on the market. So I believe that when we are combining science with the farmers and with the business and developing the products that really differentiate, we are able to make a positive change. The food system is complex, and there is no one solution that fits all. On one side of the world, you have a huge surplus of food and tremendous food waste, more than 30%. On the other side of the world, you have a malnutrition where people are eating less nutrient-dense food. And this is a complex system. But what we are creating the right platform. And this is just the beginning. This platform can expand and can be replicated. And then in the future, we can bring back the balance in the system by combining the natural resources that we have and not creating a lot of pressure on the Earth system, which we are doing today. So it is improving every step of the system, healing it, evolving it, and make sure that everyone has that proper meal that they deserve.
Kees, amazing to hear. So I want to ask you, because you know a lot about business. You've brought a lot of things to the market, especially around food. So all of this innovation, how do you bring it to the market?
Yeah, this is an important part. Just if we think back, the farmers had already talked about whether that is in fava bean or yellow peas or many of these plant-based pulses. The farmers always talked about, this is green gold. Because it takes the nutrients out of the air and puts it into the soil, and it was always fantastic. But nothing happened. And the reason why nothing happened is that actually we need to start from the consumer. There's always the consumer first, and the consumer need all the way back into the total system. And what we see at the moment actually is that consumer awareness around protein is something, very, very clear. Whether that's, in the GLP-1 and the necessity to be able to have protein, or actually the general awareness of, how you need to have a balanced diet, including, the right quality of protein. And when you think about, the protein market, that means is that consumer actually needs and the consumer demand is very vast, whether that's in the bakery segment or whether that's in protein bars or protein ready to drink or protein pastas or alternative plant-based dairy or alternative plant-based meat. And so you see that all these categories where unique protein is needed is absolutely vital. And that is how we actually link the product to the market fit. And that is, how we're not only getting it all the way from farm to fork, but most importantly, the consumer is really first. And so I'm super excited to have Matthew here. And so Matthew Green is the head of R&D of one of the customers of Nutris, which is AB Mauri. And so Matthew, thank you for joining. Can you talk a little bit what it is? What you see from your R&D, point of view, and especially as a customer to bring, with this unique ingredient, what that means for your business and how you bring that to market.
Of course. AB Mauri and Nutris have a growing partnership, which is going to be focused on the UK and Ireland bakery market. I must say, AB Mauri are a bakery ingredients company, but also providing bakery ingredients and food ingredients, technical solutions into that market. And by leveraging the know-how and expertise of Nutris and our application and food science knowledge, we're hoping that we can actually execute these ingredients into that market. For example, and you alluded to it, Kees, on high protein, we've done quite a lot of development work that's going really, really well on high protein breads. We're looking at high fibre products, so about bridging the UK fibre gap that we're working on. On the sustainability side of things, we're looking at, we're very interested in the alternative protein space, which is about reducing animal proteins, and obviously in baked goods and food, egg and milk is kind of an issue, so we don't want to take it out, but we want to reduce it a bit, and Faber's got a part to play in that. And leveraging the know-how and expertise of both of these things, we see that Faber as an ingredient has the opportunity to really help and make a more sustainable and healthy future food system.
Incredible. Good luck with all of that amazing work. I mean,
It is a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but you're doing a lot of good. And this is really exciting. I mean, this is evolution, isn't it? This is major development.
It's yes, it is. It is really important. That's no doubt about it. It's in the bakery industry. It's about, there are some challenges. Making Faber which we're fully on board with, to be honest. Making Faber a mainstream ingredient in the UK market is really, really important to us, and we're driving a number of areas in that space.
Yeah, must be good getting up every day, mate, for that.
Oh, 5 years, so yes.
Well done. Congratulations. Well, we wish you the best with all that.
Thank you.
Emelie, where's the big change going to happen? What space is it? What's going to happen? What's the future look like?
Yeah, I think what we have seen today, really starting from the farmer and all the way to the consumer, is going to be the big thing within the food systems change. And I think we've shown through this example that it can be done, and it must be done, right? Because we just need to push the planetary boundaries into a safe operating space for us as humans. But I don't think there is one silver bullet. There are multiple things that need to happen in many areas. And at Summa, we've invested in Nutris. That is one piece of the puzzle. We've invested in other companies that reduce food waste, promote more sustainable aquaculture, etc. So we need to address it among multiple areas. But as an investor, I think this can serve as an inspiration also to show how capital, if it's put and connected to what's going on in systems in the real world, because sometimes investors are very focused on financial systems, I think the power of capital can really unleash this big food transformation that we've seen an example of today across the entire value chain. And I think that can really change things.
Yeah. Business is a force for good, clearly. Kees, share the meal. Why is it so important? I mean, look, I know you were so encouraging to me, to Peace One Day, to evolve this wonderful relationship with the WFP, for us to support them in the best way that we could with the incredible work that they do, given they've won the Nobel Peace Prize. Extraordinary. Share the meal. Why is share the meal so important?
Look, share the meal is, it starts with, the inequality part of the world. And if we look at and ladder it up, climate change and inequality are obviously the real challenges which we have around the world. And to be able to start with, Maslow's hierarchy and get, safe and, food for all is obviously very, very critical. And that in 2025, we still have 800 million people who go to bed hungry. We should all be ashamed of that. And, 1/3 of all all the food has been thrown away, and we all know the statistics. But on a human level, this is just very painful. And so therefore, thank you for your leadership, and obviously the World Food Programme of what it's doing. So when we think about, how do we accelerate all this, and how do we truly, create this system change? My biggest fear is that the legacy systems are just so potently strong in terms of, the incentives, and how change is so difficult, and therefore. I talk about, the hope around the big C's, which needs to help to change that. And it starts with courageous leadership, because that is obviously what it needs. And we need more courageous leaders who step it up and do the right thing, to do the difficult right instead of the easy wrong. The second part of all this is to put, the real cost in the system. We need to give the planet a voice, and we need to make sure is that the true costs are really getting, into the system. And we know is that, when that happens, we also catapult the next C, and that is really about conscious consumers. And when we get together this courageous leadership with true cost in the system, and with the real end game is around conscious consumer. And I am sure is that, what we do at Summa Equity is to support that with what we call real conscious capital. And that is, to make sure is that business truly is a force for good.
It's absolutely amazing, Kees. Thank you so much, and for enabling Peace One Day to have this conversation. And I think courage, that word is so important right now, isn't it?
Absolutely.
As we look at the challenges that we're facing around our air, our land, our sea, and with each other and our communities and between countries. Courage, absolutely. Thank you, Kees, for everything that you've done for Peace One Day. We wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for you. Thank you for supporting and enabling this global conversation to take place. And now we're going to go to a Peace One Day PSA.